Hey, everybody. Welcome to my podcast. My name is David, and this is my podcast about dreams and dreaming. Today, I would like to talk about something called illusory form. Now, just a little bit of backstory. I have been studying and practicing established exercises and techniques for lucid dreaming for about 10 years. Before that, I learned to lucid dream when I was 6 years old and didn't really have a label for it. So I have some intuitive experience, and I also have some technical experience as far as learning techniques set out by people like Stephen LaBerge and dream and sleep yoga expert like Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, among others. Those two were the first people that I gravitated towards, along with Robert Wagner, in my adult technical practice. But it wasn't until about a year ago that I really decided to delve deeper into the dream yoga world, the Tibetan dream and sleep yogas. So one of the practices that has really been life-changing for me is this practice called illusory form. And there are many exercises and practices within the realm of dream and sleep yoga, but illusory form is really one of the big ones. It is one of the primary practices that one is taught to do during the day. And basically, the way, for example, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche says it is, look around. Maybe there's a cup nearby, a chair nearby, and just say to yourself, this is a dream chair. This is a dream cup. Basically imagining everything around you is a dream. A similar technique taught in dream yoga is to imagine that you are asleep in bed right now, and that you are in a dream right now, and that your body is asleep in bed. And these techniques are sort of a method to get you in a certain mindset. And what is that mindset? Well, the underpinnings of illusory form is a philosophy that our moment by moment, day by day experience is an illusion. It is a production. And that is not to say that it is fake, only that there is more than what we experience. And by realizing, becoming more familiar with this reality, this state of mind, you can, in essence, wake up to the dream-like nature of this life, and this reality. And so basically, you would practice this momentarily throughout the day, and it is intended to produce an awareness of this dreamlike reality. And that assists you in becoming aware while you're asleep and dreaming. So if all day long you're saying, I'm in a dream, this is a dream, everything around me is made of dream, all these objects are dream objects, then when you're in the dream, you'll think the same thing, and then you'll realize that you're dreaming and become lucid. So these are, in Tibetan Dream Yoga, these are techniques and exercises that have been developed for hundreds of years, over 1,000, almost, hundreds and hundreds of years. There's no exact date, but it's been over a millennia. And so that kind of legacy is really impressive to me. And I think there's a lot of value in intuitive experience. And, I would say that because my first experiences were intuitive, and I learned on my own a lot of techniques and exercises to assist my lucidity and my dream practice, some of which are taught in the Dream Yoga tradition. And that is one of the reasons why I've been so attracted to it, is because it resonates so much with the experience that I've already had. And so what I wanted to go into with the illusory form is sort of a state of mind that has been growing in me over the last 6 months or so. I first started noticing it probably at the end of last summer, which is about just over 6 months ago. And it was, it's hard to describe, but I would say instead of having to do the exercise and remembering to do the exercise, I began to have the sense that everything was a dream, even without having to consciously conjure that thought and using my senses to produce that mind state. It began to spontaneously produce itself. And the more I practice it, the more often I have that happen, and it's beginning to transition into something that is almost seamless with my moment by moment experience. So in other words, before I would have to consciously bring to mind this idea that everything around me is a dream. But slowly by, bit by bit, that awareness has permeated every moment of my life and essentially has increased that kind of awareness all day and all night. And the result that I've been seeing in my dreams, and it's not just the illusory form that I've been doing, so I can't put it all on the illusory form, but there's definitely a marked difference when I am really honed in and that awareness is really strong during the day. I got to a point where I could kind of tell how aware I would be at night by how aware I was during the day. And I could almost see the waves, the patterns, the undulations of my awareness during the day and how it translated to my dream experience at night. And it got to the point where essentially all of my dreams I knew were dreams. And it wasn't because of anything that was happening in the dream, but it was a sense of knowing that it was not waking life. And even if I wasn't in full control, there's a lot of requirements that people give themselves to say this is a lucid dream. But at the end of the day, the number one requirement is, do you know it's a dream? And there's a lot of technicalities in that. I'm not going to get into that in this particular podcast, but maybe in a later episode. But what I want to hone in on is this sensation of knowing that this experience is dreamlike. And it's hard to describe in simile. It's hard to describe in terms of the experience that we already have. Metaphor, I think, is one of the better ways to communicate it, but I'm going to do my best to see if I can express what's been happening and kind of the changes that I have experienced. So, along with illusory form, there's also meditation practices, and there's also nighttime practices where you wake up and you do things. And then there's practices that you do before you go to sleep and then when you wake up. So illusory form is that thing that is kind of what you do during the day. And what I'll usually do is, if I can, I'll take a moment to kind of become aware of my breath, become aware of the weight of my body, how my body feels resting on whatever it's resting on, be it my feet, a chair, the floor, whatever. And then also become aware of my senses. Some people in the lucid dreaming community might recognize this as similar to all-day awareness, which is a popular technique in the lucid dreaming community. And that's basically the mechanical aspect of illusory form. And that is, be aware of what smells are happening right now. Okay, so what are your surroundings smell like right now? Okay, pay attention to that for 30 seconds. All right, now pay attention to sounds for 30 seconds. And then pay attention to sight for 30 seconds. So on, going through the senses. And then there's variations. You could try paying attention to one sense all day. But the point is to bring conscious awareness to your senses. That's the mechanical side of illusory form. And I call it mechanical because it's essentially you're working with your senses, and it's you plug in the conscious awareness and you pay attention to your senses, and that's it. And then the result is usually more awareness during your dreams. With mixed results, some people don't have as good of results as others. And you can also say that this is a form of mindfulness, which it is. The difference with illusory form is that it creates a sort of outlook on the world. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because in practice, you are meant to apply it to your entire life. So not just sensory experiences, but also internal experiences, feelings, emotions, thoughts, that sort of thing. And so when you begin to, for example, you're feeling sad, and in that moment you practice illusory form and say, this feeling of being sad, this is a dream feeling. You're happy. This is me feeling happy in a dream. There's another way of doing illusory form where It's a declarative statement, as in this dream, I am happy. In this dream, I am sitting in a chair. In this dream, I am talking into a microphone. In this dream, I am recording a podcast. In this dream, I am alive. In this dream, I'm looking at my computer screen. And so on. And you apply this idea to everything. And this is where it can get a little bit controversial, maybe, because what about important moments? What about important conversations? What about important feelings? Those aren't dreams. Those are real. Those are meaningful. Well, you could say the same thing about everything in life. The point of illusory form is to bring the mindset of dreaming to every aspect of our life. And there is, I felt like, and I've been studying the general concepts of dream yoga for 8 years about, and when I first read it, I kind of felt like it cheapened my experience, as if I was attempting to distance myself or dissociate from the experience. And what I've discovered is actually the opposite, because everybody's different. We're all on our own paths. But for me, when I was bringing myself more into the moment through these awareness practices and imagining that it's a dream, I was actually able to more fully experience these things, because if something was too normal, then it would just kind of go by without me even noticing it. If it was super unusual, I would spend, a lot of focus on it. If it was something overwhelming, I had a habit of suppressing it, whether consciously or not. But this illusory form practice also had the effect of allowing me to see my experiences more fully. And there's this saying that all of life is a stage. And that is this practice in a sense, because over time, as you develop this sense of being in a dream, you begin to, or at least myself, I have a tendency to self-reflect a lot. And, being too self-aware, you end up kind of getting out of the flow, and it can actually trip you up, and you end up either missing something or spending too much time on another thing. And so what it actually ends up doing for me is helping me be on the stage and be in the flow, rather than get stuck in a moment and relive that over and over again, project into the future over and over again, come back to the present moment. And so, but what about it's a dream part? Because the practice of being aware and bringing myself into the present moment, that has a definite effect, a noticeable effect. But what about the dream sense? And this is really interesting because over time, as I'm practicing this, my experience of the practice begins to change because the sense is already there all the time. I'm now honing into this sense in myself, and rather than being aware of just my senses, I'm aware of myself as if I'm floating in space. And it's like I'm developing this sphere of awareness where it's like 360-degree awareness, situational awareness. It's like, it's not just my senses, but it's like, okay, so you've got 5 primary senses, and those are all information streams. Okay, so you focus on each one of those streams in turn, or try to do it all at once. But consciously, you have limitations. Consciously, you can't focus on everything at once. It's just not possible because of how our brain works. You can't focusing on all 5 senses at once. It might be possible for some people. I don't think it's possible for most people. And if it is, probably not for long. But there is a way to develop a sort of observational or passive awareness where it's kind of baked into experience, your unconscious experience. And the way I look at it is, what I've been doing is, instead of having, in my lucid dreaming practice in the past, I would have I would will myself into lucidity, and I would have these massive spikes of awareness, and I would just, really intensely will myself to be aware. And I was really successful with that, and I would have, a lucid dream most nights, every other night. But also the lucid dreams themselves were of a different quality. And I can only speak for myself as far as that goes, because everybody's experience is different. I keep saying that, and it's because it really is true. Like, no matter who, I chat a lot online about lucid dreaming, and people tend to expect it to be a bit more mechanical, to where, you do A, B, C, and you get the result, like an equation. You just plug in the practice and the exercise, and out comes the lucid dream. So it's not really like that. It sort of is, but everybody experiences different things in the middle. There's exercise and out comes the lucid dream, but so many people come to the practice of lucid dreaming with these expectations of what it's going to be like. And then when it's not like that, they end up creating these obstacles, these self-created obstacles, because of the false expectations that they've created, mostly because of popularized ideas about lucid dreaming. It's a classic thing, like the popular get rich quick schemes, that also applies to lucid dreaming. You got people saying, oh, you can lucid dream tonight, and it's a little bit more intensive than that. And so in my practice in the past, I was trying to force it, I guess. And now, it took years of conditioning myself, but over time, I kind of slowed down. I kind of, started taking my time more with my goals. And eventually, with this dream yoga practice, what I've actually done now is the great thing about what I've done now is I'm focusing on the exercises. I'm focusing on the practice itself. And I'm kind of leaving the lucidity to take care of itself. I'm leaving the awareness to take care of itself. Because I can enjoy my practice. I can enjoy my exercises. But if I try to focus too much on the lucidity and I don't get lucid, it is demoralizing. And it takes me down. And what I want to do is maintain an attitude of positivity and confidence. And what I've found is it's actually better if I focus on my practice and succeed in the small things every day in these small practices. And when I do that, I feel more positive about my practice. I feel more confident about my ability to do the practice, the exercises, and that just helps me overall. And so this kind of tweaking it to where I'm working on the foundational elements of it on a daily basis, these small exercises, small practices, has actually had an effect of raising my overall awareness. I call it my general awareness. So I don't even have to put in a bunch of willpower. I don't have to push, just will it to happen. I can just, I'll just go to sleep and not do anything some nights, and I'll still have lucid dreams. Sometimes those nights I'll have more lucid dreams because the pressure of expecting to perform can actually create a negative mindset and reduce your confidence, which in turn reduces the likelihood of being lucid. Now that's getting into a bit more of the weeds, so I'm going to go back to kind of come back to the illusory form. And the general awareness level relates directly to what I was talking about earlier, about this kind of constant sense of being in a dream. And I'm using this term in a dream, but what it really is it's this expanded sense of awareness. Because what we think of as a dream is just another mode of perception. It's just another mode of awareness. But we kind of push onto it this kind of false identity, in my opinion, that it's not real. And I think dreams are just as real as waking life. And they're both have these kind of illusory qualities to them. I think the value of seeing it as an illusion is to acknowledge the way in which we perceive the world, that it's created rather than a one-to-one interpretation. Our brains are interpreting the experience, and the interpretation becomes our reality, right? I heard this quote, I read it, about this anthropologist, and I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about how in anthropology, they don't really interpret cultures, but in the act of interpreting a culture, they actually create a new one. And this is related to like simulacrum and like the movie The Matrix, and like creating kind of fake realities, and each one of us has one, but that kind of goes off into another discussion as well. And I love rabbit holes, but I want to try to stay focused on the illusory form topic. And so with that kind of sense of, this is a dream, this is being produced by my brain right now, and where does that lead? And I'm just starting out on this journey. I'm only just over a year in, and so I'm just starting out here, and I have a more intense practice than most, I would say. Tibetan Dream Yoga is steeped in Buddhist iconography, symbolism, and meaning, and has been a huge challenge, kind of being able to understand where they're coming from. And you don't have to be a Buddhist to practice Tibetan Dream Yoga. And especially Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, he wrote the book, the Tibetan Yogas of Dream and Sleep. He does a phenomenal job of kind of communicating this practice so that the Western mind can understand. And then, of course, there are actual Westerners who have dedicated massive parts of their life to study. Alan Wallace, I hope I'm getting the order of his name right. He has done some incredible work, translation work. He's written his own book. Andrew Holacek is popular with his book. He's probably the easiest read in this area, and he has a lot of great content online. And he's a great communicator. And then another author I've come across is Michael Katz, and those are the Western guys. I probably go into a little bit more depth on what I've read about Dream Yoga in a future episode. But Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche is the guy, he's kind of my online guru in a sense, because I review his content all the time. So now I'd like to really hone in on what I mean by this dream sense in myself that has been produced through the illusory form practice. And like I had mentioned earlier, it started out with, these momentary flashes of awareness where I would focus on the moment and bring my awareness into the moment and imagine that everything is a dream. And, I am in my dream. I am sitting in this chair in my dream. I'm standing here in my dream. I'm doing whatever. And, I do this at work. I do this all the time. And it went from these momentary flashes of awareness, and it was like slowly building a fire, and I'm just adding more and more fuel to it and just keeping it burning all day. And eventually it started, just going on its own, right? And then after a while, you just have to put in a log here and there to keep the fire going. And slowly but surely, it just kind of raised my daytime awareness, raised my nighttime awareness. And I got into this space, this sensation of like I'm floating in space. And I had like a spherical awareness around me. And it actually sometimes can be a bit unsettling because I almost feel like ungrounded, where I'm like, everything I touch isn't real, and I'm like lost inside this, hall of mirrors. And that can be a challenging feeling. And it's actually something that you hear a lot about with psychedelic trips, where, your kind of feeling of being in the world evaporates in this kind of dissociation, and it can be very unsettling. So that is where the awareness comes in, and bringing yourself into the present moment, because if you allow yourself to become unsettled and disconnected, and then the anxiety starts a feedback loop of negative emotions, that can be a problem. And so, there's a lot of teachings in Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism about self-love and about finding peace and finding joy and being able to produce joy and peace and positive feelings at will. And that can be very useful in moments where life is overwhelming, or you're just kind of, whatever is happening and is just, you're done. And having that to come back to and say, okay, I'm coming back into the present moment. I'm going to remember that there are good things, and being able to create your own heaven in the midst of hell is a, invaluable skill. And so that might be something that you want to cultivate alongside the illusory form. It is something that I've done because I've followed the dream yoga practice pretty much to the letter. Now I have kind of adjusted it to my own liking in some parts, but I've kept the structure of it. I've just changed a couple of things that, because it's so rooted in Buddhist ideology that it's kind of hard for me to, well, let's put it this way. It's more effective if I kind of inject my own meaning into it, because I don't have the foundation of Buddhist meaning and teachings. So if I was raised as a Buddhist, I would have a much easier time adjusting to the dream yoga practices. Not being a Buddhist, I have created my own sort of structure, my own meaning structure, my own structure of meaning to keep me focused on the practices and on the exercises. And so this sense, this spherical awareness has taken me into a bit of a confusing place, because you really have to learn how to find your own center. And so there are many practices out there to cultivate this sense of awareness and centering. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is something called the clear light. And what you're taught is that we are clear light already, and that it's it's part of a larger teaching in Buddhism where it's a matter of becoming aware of your true nature, your Buddha nature, and that it's more about relaxing into who we really are instead of trying to find something or grasp a hold of something or not do something or get away from something. It's more about just relaxing into yourself and remembering who you really are. And so in this idea of clear light, there's something that Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche says where you are clear, and it's this kind of a path to realize that you are clear. And in these moments of, existential dread or feeling like I'm suspended in space and I can't touch anything, like I'm in zero gravity and I'm just flailing, just coming back to that center, coming back to that clear light, and relaxing into that clear light. That is something that I have to work on a daily basis. It's relatively easy for me to use my focus and my concentration to get into that dreamlike mind state. The difficult part is to relax, for me at least, is to relax and center myself while at the same time maintaining clarity. There are so many things that we use in life to relax and to calm ourselves down. Speed ourselves up, then we calm ourselves down. Then we speed ourselves up, we calm ourselves down. We use substances, we use activities, we use stories, we use all kinds of things. And so in terms of illusory form, I'm realizing that my experience is of a dreamlike nature, but I'm also learning to center myself, and I'm learning to realize my core, and in this idea of clear light. Now, whether we're actually physically made of light is not really a concern to me. The concern to me is, what does this clear light mean to me? And what kind of state of mind am I producing with this awareness of this clear light? So that pretty much concludes where I'm at with illusory form right now. And I didn't want to get into like the larger Buddhist context of what it means. I really just wanted to dive deep into my experience of it, how I practice it, and how it works for me. So that, if you want to try it, you can try it. It's just as simple as how I explained it. And really what it is, it's repetition. And so you know, imagine that you're in a dream and you just do that whenever it comes up. And, you know, I wouldn't, personally, it doesn't work for me if I do it constantly because I don't get the quality of it. And what I've noticed is that it's raising that general awareness, right? So it's not really about having constant conscious awareness. It's more about almost like renovating your unconscious awareness and building it and enhancing it. And then it kind of, you know, let it go. You're growing something, right? And you have to let the process play out. You have to let it do its thing. You put the seed in the ground and you let it do its thing, right? There's all kinds of steps to prepare, you know, make sure that you're aware of the process, you know what part of the process you're in, make sure you know, help it along in whatever way you can. There's a lot of metaphors that you could apply to this. But it's super important to kind of fire and forget in a way. It's, you know, it's almost like fishing, you know, and you're casting out the line and you're letting the bait do the work. You know, I don't want to get too deep into the analogies and metaphors, but these kind of practices cultivate a mindset. And for myself, I feel like I have really in the last couple months, I have kind of, you know, in exercise, you kind of have these plateaus. In any skill building, you have these plateaus. And so you push yourself to improve, you reach that level of improvement, and then you have to push yourself to improve again, right? And so you just continually work your way up, building and building this skill, or, you know, your body or your mind. And that is really what this illusory form is about, is a constant practice of cultivating a sense of awareness of the dreamlike nature of our experience. And I'd like to get into different aspects of this in the future. I think one of the other super interesting things that I've been able to really make my own in the dream yoga practice is the exercises of visualization, nighttime visualizations, and the symbolism and exercises that go along with that, and how I've been able to kind of tap into the core mechanic or the core root cause of why these exercises work in the first place. You know, I haven't gone into like the scientific psychology of it, but for me, I want to kind of focus on my experience, and I want to focus on really how I experience it, and this kind of feedback loop that is created in my practice, where I experience something, I make an adjustment, or, you know, I practice an exercise and then I see the result of that exercise, and the repetition of the exercise, I get a better and better idea of the effects as I go along. And so that's what I want to share. And, there's a lot of stuff I could be talking about with dreaming, but for now, I want to start out with my dream yoga journey, and I want to share that with you. And I hope you find something useful, enjoyable, interesting, fascinating, edifying, whatever. And that'll do it. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.